Time for another Chevrolet Sportsnet Central update. Last night, the Celtics took care of business against the Hawks, wrapping up their first-round series in 6 games. Jaylen Brown leading the way with 32 points. Jason Tatum had 30. Al Horford chipping in with 10 points, 12 boards, 2 steals, and 3 blocks. All right, coming up next, they're going to take on the 76ers in round 2 of the playoffs. Game 1 between Boston and Philly will take place on Monday. The Sixers have been resting since completing their 4-game sweep of Brooklyn last Saturday. All right, let's take a look now at Carrying the Load presented by the Chevy Silverado. Here's a look at the Celtics 76ers season series. Boston's won 3 of the 4 games this season, outscoring them only about 4 points per game. So they've been close, beating them in just about every meaningful category, however, except for free throws, which I'm sure has a lot to do with Joel Embiid. We're going to get to him in a minute, but right now it's time for the Daily Thread with Chris Forsberg and Danny Pommells from NBC Sports Philadelphia, the enemy. All right, here you take a look, guys, at those statistics. And the Celtics, I know they took 3 of 4, but those series were close. Dan, I'll start with you. What do those series tell us about what we are going to get in this playoff version between the Sixers and the Celtics?
They don't tell us a darn thing, Trenni. They don't tell us anything. You throw that stuff out the window. The Sixers and the Celtics, it has been close during the regular season, and the Celtics have gotten the better of them. And, yeah, I'm still suffering from that Jason Tatum buzzer beater that kind of stabbed the Sixers in the heart when they thought they had a win. But you know what? I'm going to go in with the glass half full approach that the Sixers are going to bring a little bit extra here in this Celtics series. I mean, the playoffs start now, right? This is what everyone's been waiting for. Of course, the Celtics kind of playing with their food, taking a little while to get here while the Sixers were waiting for them. But nonetheless, I think the thing that we're all monitoring, everyone is curious about, is Joel Embiid's knee. So, like, numbers really don't matter. His health is what's going to really determine a lot of things in this series, and he will be wearing a brace. They're not even sure if he's going to start the series. So how the Sixers respond to that will really tell the tale. 12-5, though, Trenni and Chris. 12-5 are the Sixers without Joel Embiid this season, counting the playoffs.
Trenni, Danny's been on the podcast this morning. He has been grasping at straws, at ways that the Sixers can be competitive in this series. He's ignoring like 5 years of history of the Celtics just absolutely dominating.
It's not on our side. It is not on our side. Yeah.
But I will give him, he is right. So the last game of the year, where I know the Celtics didn't have their full complement of players, but Joel Embiid goes out there and he was dominant. It's why he will be the MVP of the league. It's why the Celtics are monitoring closely what his health is, because he can change everything in a heartbeat with the way that he plays and the way that he impacts the game. I'll be curious what kind of defensive schemes they go with. Even in that clip right there, we see a little Blake Griffin action. You know, will the Celtics find different ways to try to fluster Joel Embiid, who was not flustered at all in that last matchup? Ultimately, they need to make everybody else on the Sixers beat them and maybe live with whatever Embiid is going to get. Maybe it's better if he gets 30 than 50, but, force Tyrese Maxey and James Harden and everyone else to beat you.
But, Chris, you just heard Danny say, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I think I heard you say, Danny, 12-5 without Joel Embiid. But does that matter in the postseason, Chris? To me, if Joel Embiid is not on the floor, or if he's not on the floor and at full capacity, and I know nothing is ever easy for the Celtics, but it should be easier for the Celtics.
Yeah, ask Danny about NEM. I learned this acronym this morning, the non-Embiid minutes of the 76ers, yes, which tend to be a struggle. Now, I can't say any differently about the NJT, non-Jason Tatum minutes for the Celtics, because those tend to be a little bit of an adventure as well. But certainly when you don't have your superstar and you don't have the guy that just sort of makes you go, it will be interesting. And that's why his health is paramount. Can he still have the same mobility? Can he still be as impactful defensively? Can he still make all those mid-range jumpers? And most important to me is, can he keep up with the Celtics' pace? Because it was going to be a struggle even if Joel Embiid was healthy. Celtics are going to try and make him run and get up and down the court for 40-plus minutes per night. And that has been their secret to success in the past. They learned in the Hawks series they have to maintain that pace. And I think that will ultimately be the talking point going in. The Celtics need to play fast, and they need to put the Sixers in tough positions.
Danny, do you really believe that they can win without Joel Embiid, or a full complement of Joel Embiid?
I am glad you sent it back my way, Trenni, to kind of refute some of what Chris was saying. But because think about it, guys, styles make fights, right? So while the style of basketball they play with Joel Embiid on the floor is very dominant and successful, but all the offense runs through him, there is a little bit of standing around and watching him work. But when Joel's not on the floor, there's a quicker pace. They play a little more interchangeably on defense. Of course, the rim protection and his defense is really important, but at the same time, it's a different style of basketball when he's not on the floor. And you could say the same about James Harden. It's just a quicker pace when he's not out there, and it's not as ball dominant with Joel controlling the offense. So it's just a different style of play. So I think that's where they've had success, is that maybe teams aren't as prepared for the scouting report of them playing without Joel Embiid. So it catches the teams off guard.
Are you saying why even put Joel Embiid out there? It sounds like they're a better team without him. Why even run him out?
Words in my mouth. Do not put words in my mouth. I did not say that. But, I mean, he will be hobbled a little bit. He's not going to be 100%. There'll be a brace, the sprain, the swelling. There's going to be some managing what's going on there. So it's kind of wait and see. We're still kind of in limbo here, waiting to see what the diagnosis will be come Monday.
Chris, because Joe Mazzulla is so young and inexperienced, even though we know that coaching is not the number one in the NBA, it's the players, it's the stars. There's always going to be a microscope on the coaching matchups because he's never been here before. Is this a completely lopsided coaching matchup for Joe Mazzulla against Doc Rivers?
Experience-wise, certainly, and we talked about it this morning with Danny in terms of if that's one of their greatest strengths. I think that and just the ability to get to the free throw line and get easy points, I think that's like sort of the roadmap for me with how Philly is competitive. Now, as I told Danny, like I don't want to talk negatively about a coach who delivered banner 17 to Boston, but Doc has had his playoff struggles since leaving Boston in multiple cities along the way and hasn't quite been able to get over that hump. I do think he's in a bit of a spotlight himself in this postseason, and maybe that's why they're getting ahead of the news that Embiid might not be, available for the start of the series. It would certainly reflect well that Doc Rivers could say, well, it wasn't the coaching, it was Joel Embiid wasn't out there. But it's going to be a tough task for Joe Mazzulla. I thought he had everything except for maybe Game 5. I thought he was really good in that Hawks series, but it showed in Game 5. He wasn't able to catch his team when it went sideways, didn't call timeouts at the right spots. There's just another level of focus that not only the players have to go to, but the coach has to go to, and I'm eager to see if Joe can match it against a coach that has been through it many times and will not be overwhelmed by the moment.
I really see why the Celtics podcast is successful, because Chris tells the truth. He's honest at the very least. And it's funny because you look at Doc Rivers, and when I hear you say stuff like banner 17, like, gag me with a spoon, like, well, oh my God. Like, but at the same time, Doc Rivers has something to prove. You mentioned some of the failures he's had in other stops and, surrendering 3-1 leads. He did it with the Clippers in the bubble most recently. And the Sixers and the Atlanta Hawks had that whole, second round playoff debacle with Ben Simmons not trying to contest under the basket and the whole 9 yards. But I think that Doc Rivers has done a great job scheme-wise and showing he still has the propensity to draw up plays and things like that out of timeouts that can really benefit the 76ers. I think that he has some stuff to prove and would like to have success. It's weird saying he has stuff to prove, a coach that has over 1,000 wins. But, it's a what have you done for me lately type of league. And this is the opportunity, regardless of the injuries, for him to prove that. Very quickly, guys, we love Hot Takes Exposed. Series prediction, very quickly. Danny, go first. Oh, I said it this morning on the podcast, Sixers in 7. Listen, I'm not going to come on Boston television and tell you that the Celtics are going to win, so you could throw that out the window. But, yes, it will be difficult. I mean, you guys have so many interchangeable pieces, so many better bench scoring options, the sixth man of the year, and suddenly Robert Williams and so many Derek White coming off the bench, guys who can contribute and kind of really take over a game in some aspects. So it will not be a walk in the park, but I'm believing that this is the year the Sixers finally get past the second round of the playoffs in over 20 years.
believing, trying to convince himself. Celtics in 6, and only because they love making their lives difficult, and Joel Embiid is really good at basketball, even on one leg.
Celtics in 7. Celtics in 7. All right, guys, thank you very much.